Again, friends, my name is John. I'm a recovered alcoholic and drug addict. Thank you for joining us. Today's topic, I believe, is on the real problem. What's your problem? And I was struck with this in 2005. I had some real problems. I started drinking when I was 16, and when I was 16, it was good fun. It was going into my friends' parents' liquor cabinets and mixing up jungle juice is what we called it. You grab a whole bunch of bottles and you put them all in one bottle and you go for a walk in the park. And I remember it being sneaky and fun and just feeling a feeling that I had never felt before. My parents, I was adopted and I was adopted into an awesome Christian family. I'm the pastor's kid that the songs are made of and that you hear about. But I was in a very strict environment that we weren't allowed to do things like other people. Like we weren't allowed to watch The Simpsons. We weren't allowed to watch much music, those kind of things. And there was a lot of tension in my parents' authority. For me, I was a very excitable young little kid, and I always felt like I was being held back. So I was trying to be sneaky, and when I found this alcohol, I was like, "Oh wow, I'm free." That was the first thought that came in my mind. Okay, the first thought was, "Oh crap, that burns." The second thought was, "Oh wow, I'm free." I don't know what this is. I don't even know what I'm free of, but here I am free. And so fast forward 15 years in 2005. I had these serious problems. Alcohol had become a serious problem in my life. Maybe it was taking a back step to everything else. I was into other substances as well and into some of the disorganized organization of that. And this problem had landed me in situations that took away my freedom, that took away my driver's license, that took away my children, that took away my relationships, took away my place to live, the roof over my head. This problem had taken away my clothing. I've been taken out of places where I had roommates, and 2 months later when I come back, I have no more stuff. I have no more skis. I have no more collecting cards. All of that stuff somehow went away because of this problem. And so I get to 2005, and what I'm assuming is my problem, it grows. That's one of the beautiful things. It's like a weed that grows within me and it keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger. It's progressive is the word that I would use. And it progressed to this point of, as I'm using to solve my problems that it's causing, the reality is that it's starting to not work. It's starting to not give me the freedom that I felt when I was 16. I would use and go, I'm in prison right now. I'm in lockdown. Like, this is horrible. I'm closing doors. I'm looking out peepholes. I'm on the run for 3 days at a time, 5 days at a time. And I'm starting, where is the freedom that I had? What I was using was actually backfiring on me. It wasn't working anymore. The way that I was living was not working. And then I didn't know that I could get sober or in recovery, whatever that looked like. So I thought that it was better that I stop hurting the people that I loved by this problem that I had that was unsolvable to me. And I just felt if I disappeared, everybody and everything would be okay. And I lived in a very dark place for a very long time, but I kept waking up. And I was not free anymore. I was not in control. I was having severe consequences. I was in a constant state of tension, of compulsion, behavior, and craving that was fueling my life. And I just kept waking up to it. Finally, at one point, I guess by the power of God, he separated me from these substances, and I landed at a homeless treatment center, at a not a homeless treatment center, at a homeless shelter, and they had a treatment center, and so there I was with this massive problem that I needed to get fixed, and so within the first week, they actually informed me that my problem was not drugs and alcohol, and I basically fell off the couch, and I was faced with this realization that I realized that this drugs and alcohol were actually my solution and actually not my problem. I was able to have the clarity of remembering when I was 16 and having that first drink. And you guys fill in the blank, whether it's the first overeating, the first ounce of sugar, the first relationship, the first click on the internet, whatever that is for you. But I could remember going back there and going, that was freedom. That was actually solving my problem. I was actually a prisoner to the problem. That was the problem. I was in prison before I ever drank. And I remember thinking how incredibly insightful these people were at this homeless shelter to say that drugs and alcohol, these substances aren't my problem. The problem started before that. So I can see the problem is whatever alcohol or drugs relieve me of. In the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, they brought in a doctor to actually that worked with thousands of alcoholics, where they had seen no hope for alcoholics. They would lock them down in sanitariums. Lockdown for my grandpa was locked down for 5 years coming out of World War II because they are deemed as alcoholics. We're deemed as a menace to society, a menace to ourselves and to those that are around us. And the only solution was lock them up. But the doctor that came in to credential the program of action that Alcoholics Anonymous found was that he actually said that men and women drink essentially because they like the effect produced by alcohol. Fill in the blank. And that's what I can recall freedom. What am I actually free from? When I'm 16, I wasn't in lockdown. I wasn't in trouble, but all of a sudden I have this burning sensation going down into my throat, into my stomach, and all of a sudden I'm thinking I'm free. What was I a slave to? The sensation is so elusive that while they admit it's injurious, and even when I was 16, I was getting in trouble. Like my parents didn't let me drink. We weren't allowed to watch Simpsons, let alone drink alcohol or be late or any of those things. So there was tension with my parents at the very beginning. It got worse for sure over for the next 15 years, but it was very injurious, and I would admit to it. They cannot, after a time, differentiate the true or the false. I don't even know what the real problem is. To us, their alcoholic life seems like the only normal one. I am, and I put this in my own words, I am restless, irritable, and discontent unless I can have the sense of ease and comfort, which comes at once by taking a few drinks. The only solution, what the doctor is saying, is a full psychic change. Really what he's saying is a spiritual awakening, a spiritual experience. And the real problem is that I've always been in prison, even when I was little. And so when I hear this word, restless, irritable, and discontent, I always had that. I had that when I was a child. I had that when I was a teenager. I never felt part of, I never felt comfortable. My question would be, is how do I know that the wind is blowing? I can look outside and I can see the trees bending. And when I want to look at the problem inside, I can see the irritability, the restlessness, the discontent inside. I can see that inside because the proof is there. I felt like my dog, I have a miniature pinscher. If anybody's blessed to have one and know what that means, you're on the same page as me. She is the boss of the house, very controlling and dominant. And she'll curl up on a couch and there'll be a blanket, but she just can't get it right. and she uses her nose. She's very creative. She's squirming. She's going around in circles. She lays down and then gets back up again and does it all over again and does it all over again. That is what alcohol freed me of, this problem. I know that this problem is there. I don't really see it because it's internal. Just like the wind's blowing, I don't see the wind, but it doesn't mean it's not blowing. This problem is within me since I was a little kid. We see this problem again on page 52 of the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous. It talks about the real problem that my solution cured, that alcohol and drugs cured. The real problem is what we call the bedevilments, kind of the opposite of the Beatitudes. These are the bedevilments. So maybe you can relate to this being inside of you. Maybe you can relate to having this, what we would call as a spiritual problem, a spiritual sickness, a spiritual uneasiness, a spiritual irritability, restlessness, and discontent, this disconnect from the world around me, this disconnect from love and comfort and joy. And what I'm being driven by is this deep-rooted fear inside of me that I'm not going to get my needs met, and I got to consume the world around me for me to be okay. So this is kind of the picture of it. It says right here, were we having trouble? Was I having trouble with personal relationships? We couldn't control our emotional natures. We were prey to misery and depression. We couldn't make a living. We had a feeling of uselessness, and we were full of fear. We were unhappy and couldn't seem to be of real help or any purpose to other people. Was not a basic solution for these bedevilments more important than whether we should see newsreels of lunar flight? Of course. The only way to solve this problem was reliant on a spiritual solution who we call God. And that's what I came to really understand, is that in this treatment center, that the only solution that was available for me, because alcohol worked, but it stopped working, I needed a new solution for this inner turmoil. And that was the care of God, the power of God, the love of God. He became my manager. He became my father. I got to be the child. I had to actually stop playing God and try to stop figuring out how to soothe this problem, how to be free of this problem. One of the things that we look at in LifeLab is really looking at the root causes of these problems. This, what we would call, is spiritual wounding. In session 9 and 10, we look at some different classifications of spiritual wounding. So as I got into my healing journey, as I started to make a connection, because that's what the real problem is. The real problem is that I'm disconnected from God's love. I'm disconnected from God's spirit, the warmth and love and comfort of his spirit. That's what my problem has always been. That's what we're born into. And so when we look at the world around us that is disconnected from God's spirit, is that we are wounded. And so one of the things that I've come to understand in my wounding is what we call an orphan spirit. So there's, like, I think we do 6 classifications. I just wanted to just share this one with you. You can look at the LifeLab videos or take the workshop, or just look at the book at session 9 and 10. But this is what the cause of an orphan spirit is. There's always a cause of the wounding. I believe that we start disconnected with God, and then the wounds start early on in our child life and may continue or be affirmed throughout our lives. And that's where we seek ease and comfort and validation. So the cause of this orphan spirit that I can relate to is my parents never bonded with the baby. And so my parents had trouble, like lots of people have trouble, but my dad wasn't in the picture. My birth father wasn't in the picture. And my mother was, I guess, forced or convinced to give me up when I was two years old. So there was definitely some issues there, some causes there. Or as a child, I was never able to bond with the parents. And then lack of nurture. Characteristics. So what are the characteristics of the orphan spirit? Difficulty to bond with male figures, difficulty to bond with God the Father, and difficulty to bond with any father figures, difficulty forming and maintaining relationships, continued testing of relationships. So basically, if I do this, will you still love me? If we're in a relationship, I get you to prove that you'll never leave me or forsake me. I'm the kind of kid that gives you a rose and comes in for a hug and then punches you right in the throat. And then you're like, why would you do that? I can't be friends with you anymore. Imagine what I did to my poor birth mom. I mean, my adopted mom. I was like that as a little kid. Um, Insatiable need for love and striving to be accepted. Part of the fear underlying this wounding is that I'm not acceptable, that I'm not valuable. And so my whole life, whether I knew it or I was is subconscious to it, was that I had to prove myself. I had to prove that I deserve to breathe the same air as you. And I did this in a very competitive way my whole life. I didn't know I was doing it, but I was a kid that never lost anything. I was always there to prove myself. There was one summer that I remember this stat. I keep stats too, to rub it in your face, to prove the point. I remember this stat that one summer, me and my friends, we played Monopoly 21 times, and I do believe I won 19 of them. I was very competitive even with board games. Somebody in this room, if she's still here, has thrown a Scrabble board at me. I'm dyslexic. I have a touch of dyslexia, and I shouldn't be winning at spelling games at any level. But I'm very competitive and know how to manipulate the board. And I frustrated my playing partner in a manner that she just quit on me. And that's what I was trying to do, is get people to quit on me because now I'm winning. And it's all because of this wounding, this separation, this fear that I'm being driven by. Inability to give love, inability to receive love. My deepest, darkest desire was to be loved and accepted, and it's something that I can't even receive. And then about love is that I don't even know how to give love because I don't know what love is. My whole life, I had a ulterior motive of trying to prove myself, trying to win, trying to be accepted. And so I displayed love-like symptoms, but it was all ulterior motives. And then a continuous searching for mother figures and father figures, always looking for these figures, but never being able to receive any direction or correction or discipline from them. So the functions that are impaired is it's communication and relationships are very difficult. And then the biggest one is that I never knew comfort. And so just like the wind blowing the trees, we had a tornado hit our house a couple years ago, and it blew over this massive cherry tree or crabapple tree in our backyard. It was because of the wind, because we saw the evidence in it. Um, I was unable to be comforted. And so when I went to this 16-year-old boy, that all of a sudden I was comforted by alcohol, I immediately was comforted by an outside solution. So alcohol was never my problem. I had the problem within me my whole life. And so what are the fears behind that? The fear is the fear of abandonment, that if people get close to me, they will reject me and abandon me. And the fear of rejection. So this deep rooted mess, if you will say, was always in me. And that's why when I was 16 years old, walking down the street in the park with jungle juice, all of a sudden I said, wow, that burns. Wow, I'm free. That's really what I'm free of, is this orphaned wounding spirit, this spiritual sickness, this spiritual disconnect. And alcohol really set me free until it stopped working. And I believe that that's my prayer for anybody today that is struggling with substance abuse, relationships, adrenaline, excitoholism, Al-Anon, overeating, whatever your ease and comfort is. We have a Father that is the ultimate comfort. We have a Father that will be our joy, our freedom. but we're blocked off. So the solution is God, but how do I get to him? Well, we go on a program of action to unclog the drain. In a loving, consensual relationship, I actually have to go to God with these things that I found, these fears, these resentments, this wounding. I have to do the work to find that and give it to God on the altar for him to take the good and the bad, because I don't even know the difference. And that's what true freedom is when I become in a place of neutrality. Not forgive and forget, because there are many of us that have had horrible upbringings or great upbringings or horrific things that have happened to us, but God will set us free and we'll be in a place of neutrality. And our darkest, deepest wounding will be of the utmost use and benefit to help others. So that's kind of what I wanted to, the conversation is that we have, what is my real problem? The real problem is this spiritual disconnect, this spiritual wounding that I have suffered. I can relate to the orphan spirit. You might relate to like 5 of the other ones. But yeah, that's where we just want to leave the rest of the conversation. Thank you.